Hello, thanks for joining me. I recently uploaded my 2-year anniversary video for my channel, Earnestly Eston, and I mentioned in that video the idea of cultural mining. And I thought about it later and I began to get worried that I didn't really say much about it other than just mentioning the term in the previous video, in that video, and so I got worried that I came across as sounding like pretentious or that I considered myself to be some sort of cultural gatekeeper, and that is not what I had in mind at all. That is not my idea of cultural mining. So I thought I would do a quick video and explain myself a little bit more what I mean when I say cultural mining as far as me and my channel goes. So it all kind of started back with Alain De Botton. If you don't know who Alain De Botton is, he's a popular philosopher, I guess, and essayist, and he's written several books about culture and really applying culture in a to a person's life, a very pragmatic view of culture. I actually had a chance to see a lecture by him a few years ago. I did a quick search and I was actually able to find the lecture. Here it is. I attended this lecture. It was a free lecture, Alain De Botton, on Art as Therapy, Friday, October 18th, 2013, 6:30 to 8 p.m. This was at the Cooper Union in New York City. I was living in New York still at that time. So this was a really informative lecture that really got my wheels turning and made me rethink a lot of things and really was a very sort of influential, talk that I heard. So Art is Therapy, the book Art is Therapy, Alain De Botton is talking about in that particular book, art, like museums, like fine art, and how inaccessible that is to many people, that the way that museums actually organize their collections is based around possession. It's based around possession and collection, not based around the work itself and maybe how meaningful it would be to a person. So his argument was that, when a person goes into a museum like the National Gallery here in Washington, D.C., one of the world's major museums, that, you get fatigued because what you're doing is you're looking at collections, and that's fine to look at because on some level, the works of art are just beneficial to view just for their beauty, but in order to view them as a collection, then that means that you're sort of suppressing that ability to view them emotionally and psychologically, unless you're just really called out, and just going to focus on one particular painting. Because if you go into a collection and you're seeing like the Impressionists, you're seeing a bunch of works around Impressionism, not around the work itself or what emotions or psychology it might elicit in you if you were to reflect on it on a deeper level. And so he was arguing that museums should actually group their collections in this emotional, psychological way, like paintings that express ideas like familial love or happiness or childbirth or childhood or anger or sadness or mourning, that these sorts of, if museums were to organize their collections in this sort of psychological, emotional way that people could actually relate to and take something away from on a sort of deeper emotional level, rather than just the intellectual collection-based sort of level, that museums would become alive in a whole new way. And, I thought about that. He's actually written several other books. I read one of his called, let me just pull it up for you so you can see the cover let me get to my... Religion for Atheists, A Nonbeliever's Guide to the Uses of Religion by Alain De Botton. So I've read this book. It's been several years, many years actually, so I really need to go back and reread this at some point probably. But in this, Alain De Botton mentions he was raised by in a secular Jewish family, basically atheist family, but he discovered, religion and the different aspects of religion that can be so meaningful to a person, to anyone, regardless of if you actually are a adherent of that particular religion or not, that there's a lot that you could you could benefit from religion, like the architecture, the music, the art and painting associated with Christianity, other sorts of things like the communal aspects of religions, the ritualistic aspect of religions, just all sorts of ideas like that. So he's culturally mining. He's taking from the culture of religion and then applying it to his life. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then, another one that I haven't read but would like to. Let me just pull that one up. This has reminded me, The Architecture of Happiness, and this is about architecture. The arts of architecture and how architecture we can access architecture, even though we might not be architects. We can access architecture and take something psychological and emotional away from a work of a fine work of architecture. So I took these ideas of Alain De Botton and I wanted to apply them to my own life, because one of the primary sort of things that I've concerned myself with over the last quite a few years actually, is exploring, what a good life means to me. What does it mean for me to live a good life? I don't think, for me, that answer is not anything anybody's ever given me. Society may say it's money, or it's a particular job, or some sort of status, and to me, none of that really works. So, I began long ago a journey of, what does it mean for me to have a good life? So that's an idea that I've continuously been exploring. And so by cultural mining, I'm talking about my own journey in engaging with culture and pulling from that culture meaningful aspects of it that I discover that I find, help me to either, to enable me to live a better life, to live a good life, to live the best life that I possibly can. Or sometimes it's just the simple marvel, a good life actually needs a certain level of awe and marvel and wonder and beauty and these types of things. And so sometimes when I engage in a work, it's just on that sort of level. But other times I come away with some sort of practical idea. You can see this a lot of time in literature with for example, characters. You walk with the character on their whatever situation we find ourselves in with that character in that book, and we experience life differently when we experience it through that character. So fiction, to me, can be just as meaningful and just as pragmatic as reading nonfiction, because I can engage with that other person. A fictional person, yes, but to my brain, it doesn't feel like fiction sometimes. It feels like, I'm getting their wisdom. I'm getting the benefit of their experience. So therefore, I'm expanding my own wisdom by seeing how they interacted in whatever situation they were in. And so, so that's how it's sort of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about for my channel. I'm culturally mining for myself. I am not a gatekeeper, a cultural gatekeeper. Like, I would even say Alain De Botton is a cultural gatekeeper, because he's taking, he's studying something big, like a macro subject like architecture, and then he's pulling out lots of different examples, and then he's, sort of giving it to us in a lesson. And I'm not trying to be that sort of pedagogic sort of approach. I'm glad he does, because this gives me a lot, gives me knowledge. Another group of people that I've given shout outs on multiple videos before is the academics, the people who really search for and keep this knowledge. They search and they're the gatekeepers of knowledge. They keep the knowledge alive from generation to generation. It has to renew itself. Knowledge has to renew itself every generation, or else it would die out. So it requires academics to do this. So I have a great amount of respect for academics who focus on details of knowledge, sometimes very small little aspects of knowledge that would be very sort of detailed, like the pottery of a particular culture that existed for 600 years in the year 5000 BC. These are the people that I just find so we're all so indebted to these people who study this and who really accrue this knowledge for the benefit of humanity. And then those who are able to take that knowledge that the academics have gathered and that the academics are guarding for us and that the academics are producing for us, and then they are actually able to condense that into a readable and understandable format for someone like me who is not an academic. So I'm thinking of people like the person whose name I can't think of off the top of my head, who wrote the book After the Ice, which was a study of, the Ice Age, 15,000 years worth of study of the human experience from 20,000 BC to 5,000 BC. That was a lot of information for that writer to be able to dig in, find that knowledge, condense it down, put it in a readable book for me to read, and then my knowledge was expanding and my experience was then expanded because, how to live a good life for me. I can see how people lived in 10,000 BC. It expands my knowledge. It expands my awareness of what it means to live by having that knowledge. And then, or someone like Mary Beard who wrote SPQR, another great popularizer. She herself is an academic, but she's able to take her knowledge base of classical Rome, the classical world of Europe, and she's really able to condense that down. I consider people like Mary Beard and the author of After the Ice and Alain De Botton to be the cultural gatekeepers, not me. I'm not a cultural gatekeeper. I am strictly engaging with culture on my own. It's my own experience. It's my own, what I've pulled from it, and then I share that on my videos. So I hope that makes sense, that I was not trying to say, trying to give any impression at all that I considered myself one of these cultural gatekeepers. So anyway, I will close with that until my next video. Take care.